All around the world, ancient people spoke of mysterious creatures that once roamed the earth. Giants, serpents, cryptids, and all sorts of terrifying beasts were said to exist. From all corners of the globe, we find these sorts of myths and legends. And many from opposite sides of the world have eerily similar details in the monsters they depict. Dragons are among these beasts of mythology and ancient stories. The dragon is a creature that has been common among ancient writings and art since the beginning of man and the various cradles of civilization. The Sumerians and later Babylonians depicted dragons as gods, and also as giant serpents. In the ancient Indian text, a dragon appears as a human-like demigod known as Vitra, who held back the great waters until his death. We also find depictions of dragons in Europe, the Americas, Eastern Asia, Australia, and all over Africa too. But there are two of these places in particular that I wanted to focus on today. We can trace many similarities across all these cultures through dragon and serpent depictions, but two of them specifically show signs of contact, and a similar tradition going back to the earliest recorded histories. So early that many scholars write it all off as pure mythology. These two cultures are ancient China and the Mesoamerican people, especially the early Mayan and Olmec. The Chinese mythologies go back long before recorded Mayan and Olmec civilization, but I believe there could have been some kind of a migration to the Americas, or possibly the ancient Chinese civilization was so great and large, it extended all across the world at one time. There are many similarities in culture and traditions outside of dragons, one of which being the huge pyramids both of these cultures built. The Mesoamerican pyramids are well known, and date back to the earliest peoples in Mexico and Central America, while the Chinese pyramids are lesser known, but just as numerous and spectacular. Many are off limits to tourists, but the ones we can see are very impressive and often contain intricate burials, an example being the massive terracotta army figures that guarded the pyramid tomb of the Emperor Qin Shi Huang of the Qin dynasty. According to Chinese mythology, the Yellow Emperor had a dream which he saw a divine dragon that left a deep impression on him. The dragon in his dream was said to be a magnificent creature with a long, sinuous body covered in shimmering scales, sharp claws, and a fiery breath that could light up the sky. The dragon was also said to have 5 claws, which were a symbol of the emperor's authority and power. It's believed that only the emperor and his immediate family were allowed to use the 5-clawed dragon in their art and decorations. In the Chinese histories, dragons are often depicted as creatures with a body of a snake or serpent and the head of a lion or tiger. They were considered to be auspicious creatures that brought good fortune and prosperity. They were also believed to have control over the elements, including water, fire, earth, and air, and were often associated with the rain and the sea. The dragon's fiery breath was believed to represent the power of the emperor to control the weather and create rain, which was essential for agriculture and the survival of the people. The dragon's association with the emperor and his authority was so strong that in ancient China only the emperor was allowed to wear the color yellow, the color of the imperial dragon. Commoners were forbidden to use this color, and anyone caught wearing yellow could face severe punishment. The Yellow Emperor, also known as Huang Di, is a legendary figure in Chinese history and mythology, who's believed to have ruled over China around 2700 BC. According to legend, he was one of the 5 emperors who ruled during ancient times in China. The Yellow Emperor was said to have played a pivotal role in the development of Chinese culture and society. He's credited with inventing many technologies and cultural practices that are still used in China today, including acupuncture, the Chinese calendar, and the writing systems. One of the most famous legends associated with this emperor is the creation of the dragon. According to legend, the Yellow Emperor had a dream in which a divine dragon appeared to him. The dragon was so magnificent that it left a deep impression on him. He became obsessed with the idea of creating a dragon of his own. To bring his dream to life, the Yellow Emperor enlisted the help of his courtiers and artisans. Together they created a dragon out of clay and wood, painstakingly sculpting each scale and feature by hand. When the dragon was finished, the Yellow Emperor breathed life into it, and it sprang to life, soaring into the sky. Over time, the dragon became an important part of Chinese culture, appearing in art, literature, and mythology. The emperors even believed that they were descended from dragons themselves, and that dragons would protect and assist them in ruling the empire. One of the earliest depictions of these creatures in Chinese mythology can be traced back to the Shang dynasty, 1600 to 1046 BC, when dragons were associated with water and rain, and were believed to be responsible for creating rivers and lakes. In the Mesoamerican traditions, dragons are depicted as feathered serpent gods, and were worshipped by several ancient cultures in Central America, including the Aztec, Maya, Toltec, Zapotec, and Olmec. This deity is also known by several different names in these cultures, such as Quetzalcoatl among the Aztecs and Kukulkan among the Maya. These gods were often depicted as a serpent with feathers, hence the name. This deity was associated with various aspects of life, including fertility, agriculture, wisdom, and creation. In some cultures, the feathered serpent was also linked to the planet Venus, and was considered a symbol of both the morning and evening star. The mythology surrounding the feathered serpent gods varies among different cultures. In Aztec mythology, Quetzalcoatl was a civilizing figure who taught the Aztecs various arts and skills, including agriculture, medicine, and the calendar. According to the legend, he also helped create the current iteration of the world, and was believed to have ascended to the heavens in a spectacular display of light. In Maya mythology, Kukulkan was associated with the feathered serpent, as well as with the wind and water. He was also believed to have played a role in creation, and was associated with the sun and the planet Venus. The Olmec civilization is considered one of the earliest Mesoamerican cultures, and they also had a deity associated with the feathered serpent. This deity was known as the were-jaguar, or were-jaguar serpent, and is depicted as a combination of a jaguar and a serpent. The were-jaguar deity was a significant figure in Olmec mythology and art, and it was often depicted on Olmec monuments, figurines, and other artifacts. The Olmec believed that this deity had the power to transform into both a jaguar and a serpent, and it was associated with agriculture, fertility, and warfare. The were-jaguar deity was also associated with rulership, and it was often depicted as a regal figure wearing a headdress and other ornate regalia. Some scholars believe that the Olmec ruler was seen as a living embodiment of the were-jaguar deity, and that ruler's power was linked to this deity's ability to transform and control the natural forces. Does that sound familiar to you? I'm sure you've already noticed a few similarities between these Chinese and Mesoamerican dragons, even just looking at some of the images. But I want to show you a few more and point out a few more things. As we may already know, many Mesoamerican dragons are often shown coiled up in a pattern of right angles. We also see this with much of their lines and stylistic decorations as well. And we also find this in Chinese dragons. The entire shape and movement of these creatures would have been the same as the Chinese dragons as it was in America. We also see similar claws in some of them. Chinese dragons always have the iconic lion paw-like hands with huge claws, and many of these Mesoamerican feathered serpents have this detail too. But the most impressive similarities are the heads of these creatures. In Chinese art, they have very detailed heads with demon-like eyes, horns, manes around their face, huge nostrils, and those large teeth. In Mesoamerican depictions, the serpents have these same features. The huge heads with detailed eyes, horns, some kind of feathered mane around their heads, a long, slender body, the same nose and nostrils, and the teeth look so similar. The way they curl back and hook inward is the exact same in Chinese and Mesoamerican depictions. It seems to me that either these cultures had contact at some point, or they were depicting real dragons that roamed the earth in our very ancient past. I also have some other artifacts to show you. It seems that the most ancient Chinese artifacts are the ones that look the most similar to Mesoamerican. There are ancient Chinese masks that date back as far as 1600 BC that look similar to masks in Central America. Many of them are even made out of the same material, jade. And jade was very prized and sought after in both China and Mesoamerica. But some of these Mesoamerican masks look Chinese, in the way the ears are shaped as well as the eyes and eyebrows, but especially that rectangular long ear shape. And some even have earrings in the same fashions. It's so eerie. Another detail I came across that is interesting is on the steps of the pyramid of Kukulkan, the Mayan feathered serpent god. There's a serpent whose head is at the bottom of the steps, and on the equinox the sun will hit the steps in such a way that it looks like the serpent is descending down the pyramid. In China, at the Forbidden City, on one of the main stairways we see a depiction of two dragons descending down the steps, and the temple even slightly resembles the step pyramids. Many have also compared Chinese and Mayan calendars. I want to read you a short article from Ancient Origins about an archaeologist who studied these similarities. It reads as follows. Ancient Mayan and Chinese calendar systems share so many similarities, it's unlikely they developed independently, according to the late David H. Kelly, whose paper on the subject was published posthumously. Kelly was a Harvard-educated archaeologist and epigrapher at the University of Calgary in Canada. He earned fame in the 1960s for major contributions towards deciphering the Mayan script. His article titled Asian Components in the Invention of the Mayan Calendar was written 30 years ago, but was only recently published for the first time in the journal Precolumbiana. In 1980, a major science journal had solicited the article, said Precolumbiana's editor, Dr. Stephen Jett, but Jett said the editors rejected it as being overly documented for the journal's spare format, understandably for so revolutionary an effort. Dave did not wish to weaken the documentation, and he never published the piece elsewhere. Jett obtained Kelly's permission to publish it before he died. The hypothesis Kelly presented is controversial. He said that the calendars indicate contact between Eurasia and Mesoamerica more than 1,000 years ago, contradicting mainstream archaeology's understanding that such a contact occurred for the first time only a few hundred years ago. Kelly supported the controversial theory of early transoceanic contact in general. It is a theory that has many other academic proponents that Precolumbiana specializes in exploring. The similarities in the calendar systems is only part of the growing body of evidence for early contact. Kelly also isn't the only one to have noticed the similarities between the calendar systems. But given his authority as an expert on Mayan history, his analysis is a pillar on which to base further study. Another researcher who coincidentally has the same name but with a different middle initial, David B. Kelly, has used a computer program to further analyze the similarities between the two calendar systems. David B. Kelly is an East Asian linguist at Showa Women's University in Tokyo. His paper titled Comparing Chinese and Mesoamerican Calendar Dates was published in the recent issue of Precolumbiana. In both calendar systems, the days are associated with various elements, water, fire, earth, and so on, and animals. While the various associations don't line up perfectly between the two systems, they do frequently correspond. Some of the differences may be accounted by changes over time. The same root calendar systems may have been tweaked by each culture in different ways. We'll explore only a couple of the similarities mentioned by Kelly and David B. Kelly as examples. The same days in the Mayan and Chinese calendars are associated with the deer and the dog and the monkey. Other days also closely match, though the correspondence is not exact. For example, one day is associated with the jaguar in the Mayan calendar, but the tiger in the Chinese. Another is associated with the crocodile in the Mayan, but the dragon in the Chinese. The associations may essentially be the same, though the specific manifestations may differ based on local fauna or lore. Old world domesticates such as the horse, sheep, cow, and pig are also missing from the Mayan calendar. Another example of the similarity between Mesoamerican Chinese calendars is the combined symbolism of the rabbit and the moon. The Aztec Day 8 rabbit was ruled by Mayahuel, goddess of the moon, and of the intoxicating cactus drink pulque, Kelly wrote. Representations of the rabbit and the moon are first seen in Mesoamerica around the 6th century AD. Pictures of the rabbit and the moon pounding out the elixir of immortality are Chinese favorites, first appearing in Han China in the 1st century BC, or slightly earlier. Kelly concluded that the animal names in the Mayan calendar system are clearly derived from a prototypical form of a Eurasian expanded list. The Chinese system also corresponds to this Eurasian list. Across the ancient Old World, calendar systems intermingled. Kelly thus looked at Greek, Indian, and other systems as examples of how calendars in different cultures may have similar roots, but take on only slightly different forms. This helped him understand the similarities and differences between the Chinese and Mayan calendars, and to infer that they both ultimately have the same source and did not develop independently. It also shows where the elements of the Mayan calendar diverge from the Chinese, although they may still align with other Eurasian systems, supporting the theory of early contact. David B. Kelly used the computer program Intercal, developed by Caltech astronomer Dennis Elliott, to find matches between the Mayan day associations and the Chinese elements of fire, water, earth, metal, and wood. At first he didn't find any matches for these elements, though though he did find correlations in animal associations, as the previous Kelly did. But when he slightly tweaked the parameters of this comparison, he found a lot more overlap. Some background explanation is necessary here. The start date of the Mayan calendar has been a matter of debate. No one knows for sure when it started, though it's commonly held that it began August 11, 3114 BC. David B. Kelly started with this assumption, and found 9 matches between the two systems, within any given 60-day period, all related to day names and animal associations. But then he tried shifting the start date slightly. When he shifted it by 4 days to August 7th, 3114 BC, the matches increased from 9 to 30 within a 60-day period, and the matches included the elements. The accuracy of his comparison has some limitations aside from the tweak in the start date. Elliot warned that his program would become increasingly less accurate the further back in time one used it to analyze dates. Yet David B. Kelly wrote, in spite of the lack of a solid match, the possibility of some sort of systematical relationship between the certain Mesoamerican day names, and both the Chinese heavenly stems, elements, and earthly branches, animal associations, is tantalizing to say the least. If, indeed, it can be demonstrated that there is a reasonable degree of relevance for the idea that the Mesoamerican calendar system may be related, even in some minor way, to the Chinese calendar system, then an opportunity to test the Mesoamerican calendrical calculations against a known system, i.e. the Chinese, becomes available, he said. That's not to mention the implications for ancient contact between the old world and the new. Kelly had a daunting task untangling the knots of changing associations over time. He gave some examples of how associations that don't seem at first glance to correspond to each other may have some relation. For example, a Pipil Mayan list from Guatemala has turtle in the 19th position. A Malay list also has turtle in the 19th position. Other Mayan and Aztec lists have lightning storm in the 19th position. A Hindu list has a female dog in the 19th position. The correspondence of lightning storm, female dog, and turtle would normally be considered to be discrepant, Kelly wrote. However, the goddess of the 19th Aztec day was Chantico, a fire goddess, turned by the other gods into a dog. The concept of a lightning dog is found in Asia throughout the areas of Buddhist influence, and is also found in Mexico. A Tibetan manuscript actually shows a female lightning dog seated on a turtle, thus nicely combining the concepts associated with the 19th position of the animal lists. The Mayan Madrid Codex also depicts a dog seated on a turtle, a biological oddity. In addition to animal or element associations, both Kelly and David P. Kelly noted linguistic similarities between the day names along with other supporting evidence. David B. Kelly wrote, perhaps one of the most tantalizing aspects of a comparison of the Mesoamerican systems of numerals lies in linguistics, where it can be demonstrated that the words reflecting vigesimal orders of magnitude in certain Maya dialects, and the words reflecting decimal orders of magnitude in certain Chinese dialects are almost interchangeable. Kelly concluded, in my opinion, the correspondences that I have discussed forcefully indicate cultural contact of some sort between the people of Eurasia and the people of ancient Guatemala or nearby Mexico. He surmised that such contact may have occurred around the late 1st or early 2nd century AD. He said his conclusions are disputable, but are the best solutions that I've been able to find. And that concludes the article. I'll link that below if you want to go check that out for yourself. Now, I find all this evidence for contact between China and Central America very compelling, and it does also show a similarity to other cultures who use dragon symbolism and have similar calendar systems. The final piece of evidence I want to point out is in the DNA studies done on the people of Mexico and Central America. The genetics of modern peoples are slightly difficult to make conclusions on due to the mixing of people during colonial and modern times. However, based on DNA studies, historians and researchers have come to the conclusion that Native Americans, including the Mesoamericans, have DNA that comes from northern Siberia, Mongolia, and northern China region. These were said to be the Neolithic travelers who crossed the Bering Strait during the last ice age sometime around 10,000 years ago. But what if this Asian DNA came to the Americas later than that? What if they had contact with the mythological dynasties of ancient China? This would explain the Northern Asian DNA in Native Americans just as well as the Bering Strait crossing theory. And it would explain why we see such astounding similarities between these two faraway cultures. That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. I've been posting a lot on the Patreon lately. It's basically a place where I compile all my research and post all the videos I watch while researching. And it's only $3 to subscribe, so it's not bad at all. Feel free to message me on there as well, and be sure to stay tuned to the channel for some new videos coming up. See you next time.